Okay, so let's start. So if you see on the left hand side, we discussed about the different process APIs. Not everything we discussed only on those which are important or which we regularly use whenever we do a cleanup or any kind of testing. If you have to do all those APIs we discussed regarding the process API. From the service API also we discussed like start service. We saw an entire implementation last day where we try to trigger an Ajax service from here, and that Ajax service triggered the process, right? This kind of testing we do. Apart from this, you have like resume service. Say some service is, say for example, there is some service which is active right now. If I want to resume that, or if something is suspended, if I want to resume that, we can use this one. If I want to get the data from a service, I can get it over here. You just need to put the task ID. And what is task here, say we create a human service, right? And inside a human service we create a lot of variables, input variables, output variables, private variables. Say for any of those variables, if I want to get the information, like what information that variable is at the moment it holds, then in that case I can provide the task ID, and here I just can provide the field name, parameter name. Say we have a parameter, say employee information. I just can put that field employee information, and I just need to put the task ID. If I click on execute call, it will give me the result. Now you might be thinking like all these things like getting the data for a particular parameter for a task. This can also be seen from the inspector, right? I mean, that's the thing we do actually. We first go to the inspector. If we don't get the data from there, then in that case we come here and we try to get the data. Whatever data we get over here, guys, it comes in the form of JSON, right? So we need to understand JSON also in that way, so that whatever parameters we are trying to get, the value will be coming in the JSON format. So we need to understand what value and what parameters are there in the JSON format. And accordingly, we can decide like if we want to proceed with this value, if you want to change the value, then definitely we can go and change the value from the inspector. So like this, you have the different options over here, service API, then comes your task API. Task API is also very similar to service API. So here you see task details. Say if I want to get the task details of a particular task, okay, let me get it from the inspector. I believe I have opened the inspector here. So we'll get one task, say this task. Say here you see there is an instance called 261. And if I open the task, I have this employee task, and in brackets what you see the task ID here 263, right? So I can go back here, put here 263, and if I execute call, it will give me all the task details for that specific task. It is telling me what is the instance ID, what is the name of the instance, what is the priority of the task. All these details are being displayed. What is the step of the task, step name. Then you see data, whatever data that task actually holds, all those details are being stored over here. Okay. Similarly, get data also is very similar. Say you put the task ID over here, and I put the name of the field for which I want to get the data. So once again, say this is the task ID 263. So I'll go back and put here 263. And now if I want to get some data, say here what you see employee task. Let me go inside the employee task. So I'm going to click on it. Now here if I expand it, you see here these two variables are there, in employee information and employee information. One is an input variable and the other is the output variable. How I can say this? It's an input and output. You see here at the top there is a circle and some arrow is going inside the circle, right? So which means it's an input. And here there is circle and the arrow is coming out of it. So that's the reason it is an output. The other simpler way is just hover your mouse on top of it. It says input. And here if I hover my mouse on top of this one, it says output. Okay, so if I want to get what data is there inside this parameter in employee information, just go back to your REST API, just put here the name of the variable in employee information, and then if I execute call, you see what I get. First of all, always this one status is 200. Okay, which means the call is successful. And now if you come to the result, guys, you see here, this is the entire metadata. You see here in employee information has a parameter called emp id, which has a value Rahul. Apart from this, do you see anything over here, any other parameter? No, because all the other parameters inside this business object are actually null or empty. I'll just show you. This is a parameter. You see only employee id has a value. Other than that, everything is null or not set. Okay, that's the reason this REST API gave me correctly. It gave me only the value of emp id or employee id. Apart from that, everything is blank or null. That's the reason it is not displaying anything over here. Okay, so simple. To get any information for a specific parameter, you can use the task API, and using the task API I can get the data, right? Similarly, set data. You want to set some value for a parameter. We already saw something like this. If you remember, in the inspector we have something called edit data, and there we went and we added some data for a specific parameter or parameters. We can do that, right? Many people are thinking what you are telling, Rahul. See here, we have this parameters, right? If I want to set some value, I can set some value like this. We saw it before, right? And then we have to use this button to save the changes. Now if I am a developer, if I don't want to use inspector, then in that case I can use REST API also for this. But the thing is, guys, if you are using REST API, then if you want to set some value for any parameter, we have to prepare that in JSON format. So setting value for a parameter through inspector is much more easier than setting it through the REST API. You can set it easily through the REST API if you're good in JSON. So try to practice the JSON. Okay. I believe last day I did not give you this JSON format. I hope this will help you. So I'll just ping this in the chat. And I'm sure people are doing the practice. I mean, they have gone to those W3 schools, and maybe there you have done the practice. Okay. So this is one of the API, like setting data, where you can set the data. Bulk task details. I want to get the task details not only of one task, but say for multiple task IDs, right? So in that case, what we have to do, in a comma separated way, I can provide the task ID of the different tasks. I'll just show you one example. So here, what we have the task ID. Say, let me take the task ID. So 263, 263. And then say I want to get the task details of another task. Say for this instance 260, let me get the task ID again, 262. So I can use again comma 262. Now if I execute call, it will give me the task details for both these tasks. Okay. If I scroll down, the first one says 261. And here comes your task ID 263. Okay, so for all the tasks, you will get all the details. So whatever task ID you put, it will show you all the details of all those tasks. Okay, see here another task ID 262. So both 262 and 263 are populated. If I want to get the task details in this way, I can get it using bulk task details API. Just need to put, if there are multiple tasks, just put the multiple task IDs in a comma separated way. Okay, what is the most important thing over here? What we generally use is assign.